Well, I respectfully disagree with Max's position about the players, and their leverage and what have you in this particular situation. You can use the word leverage all you want to. Remember that with the cancellation of a season, the force majeure kicks in. You're talking about players losing 1% of their salary for every game that they miss. You're talking about the potentiality of collective bargaining discussions reopening, and as a result, taking into account the billions of dollars that will be lost, and then having to go back to the negotiating table. You're also talking about the hundreds of, if not thousands of jobs that could potentially be lost by people who don't play the game but work within the NBA. You also have to take this into consideration as well, Max Kellerman, when you're looking at Dwight Howard and Kyrie Irving and what exactly they're talking about. Again, I'm going to lean on what they talked about. We're not talking about the coronavirus now. We understand what the position is for anybody with that regard. As it pertains specifically to racial strife being the reason why you would not want to go back and play. Well, we've always had that rationale throughout our history. We come out of the womb racially oppressed. I think that's something that we've talked about ad nauseum over the last several weeks, over the last several years on this show. We understand what world we're living in. We understand the uphill climb that comes along with it. What I'm saying is racial strife can't be the reason you don't go to work. You go to work. If you're Kyrie Irving, who's making $31 million this year, there's a whole bunch of people that ain't going to make that kind of paper. You're also going to have a residual impact that's going to have dire consequences from a financial perspective. And then when you talk about actually protesting or whatever, I don't recall one instance where we've heard anyone associated with the National Basketball Association, all the way up the chain with Adam Silver, that prohibits you from being active in the fight against racial oppression. Your social media pages, your willingness to protest and things of that nature. Let's face reality. We don't expect Brooklyn to be playing but so long. And oh, by the way, Kyrie Irving wasn't going to be playing anyway because he got injured in March and he's out for the season. You've got a whole bunch of folks that still have the freedom to go out there. You go to work and you can still protest. You can still make contributions. Like Austin Rivers said, the money that you generate, what you can put into those coffers. And I'll regurgitate the point that I made earlier in terms of contacting the NAACP Legal Defense Fund or anybody like that who've already put in the groundwork that can take those actions that you
I agree with that
to
part,
elevate
Stephen
the profile and bring attention and to make sure that they can go about the business of addressing your concerns. There are ways to do it and still go to work. That's my point.
Look, one thing is a misunderstanding. I don't mean the players have more leverage in future negotiations with the league through doing all this. I'm saying they have a kind of a cultural leverage at the moment. It's an inflection point right now, and it's unusual. It doesn't usually exist. So people like Dwight Howard and Kyrie Irving are talking about leveraging that moment, not giving it up, not playing games, not going back to business as usual. See, things are normal until things get more normal for black people. And by the way, when you talk about legislation and stuff, yes, of course, they can be working on things like a federal law where if you turn off a body camera, a police turns on, that's destruction of evidence, things like that. There are all kinds of things that can be worked for, and it's not mutually exclusive. You can work on parallel tracks. Look, the coronavirus, Stephen A., black people are being affected disproportionately. Like, there's an overlap here between the coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter issues. There's tremendous overlap, and it's creating that moment. So when you say, well, racial inequality is not a reason to not go to work or hasn't been, largely that's because at times there wasn't a sense that that would actually do anything, or that the risk was worth the reward, or that people would be so like-minded everywhere that maybe it would actually work in spite of the risk. And so I think now that's changed. As to your point, and Jay, then I'll give it to you, that Kyrie's already getting $31 million this year, but he'd be giving up the rest of his money this year. Kyrie, Dwight Howard, everyone would be putting their money where their mouth is. Ultimately, I agree with your analysis. I think for some of the reasons you pointed out, they're better off even doing what they claim they want to do by going to work. But I have to check myself constantly and say, wait, is that just convenient for me? Because I'm a basketball fan? I have to check that impulse. And I think the player's antenna is up for that too.
Well, let me say this before Jay chimes in. You have to check your impulse as a white guy, and I respect and appreciate that. I'm not knocking that by any stretch of the imagination, okay? I'm a black man. I'm going through the same thing that they've gone through. I've gone through the same thing that they've gone through. I've been poor most of my life. I don't give a damn about some recent contract. The first 48 years of my life, how was I living? The bottom line is that as a black man, you know what we go through. We get it. But at some point in time, it ain't enough for the apologies. The apologies, the heightened level of sensitivity, and we get it, we hear you, we understand. I'm talking about action. Action. And guess what? Protesting is one element. Finishing the job is another. And that's what we need to highlight. And that's what I'm talking about.
Max, I wanted to quickly respond to your point because I watched the first block too. And what I would say is that, you know, when you're talking about Kyrie, who's accumulated close to $100 million in his career, same with Dwight Howard, accumulated more than $100 million. You know, putting their money where their mouth is one thing for them. But how about the bottom portion of the league where, you know, look, we were on the boardroom with CJ McCullough, and I asked him directly, how many players you think live paycheck by paycheck? And he looked at me, he said, probably around 80%. 80%. So if I look at the NBA as a vehicle that has generated life-changing legacy wealth for a lot of African Americans, Michael Jordan is an owner in the league because he played basketball. It's a huge provider for black people. It is, right? With the other jobs that they can take from there, reallocating money to then purposely put that money, reallocate that money back into communities, things of that sort. And so if you decide to boycott because you're looking for a change until things go back to be better for black people, what does that mean? Like what threshold does things need? Black people. I understand we have significant room for improvement, but what are the standards that we need to abide by in order for things to go back for guys to play? That's something for players to think about, to think through, right? Strategically, tactically.